Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast live on YouTube. I'm your host, Dan Rolinson, joined by Matt Lynch. Matt, you're here for an Aston Villa win. That makes a change.
I only turn up when we win away. It seems to be the trend. So no, yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, good. I'm good to be here talking about Aston Villa as well. Winning games away from home. I mean, that'll never catch on, will it? Um, Two wins away from home in the matter of a few days, away at Bruges, away at Brentford. Two tricky games. Brentford away is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. As we spoke about on the preview, their home form started really well, and they've not won in their last 6 at home, last 7 now. Villa don't keep clean sheets. Robin Olsen's in goal. There's a lot of kind of narrative that would have, if this was a game we were talking about, Brentford beating us 3-1, let's say, before the game kicked off, you'd have gone, yeah, I could probably see that happening. There's a universe where Brentford are good, we're not very good, and the game is very, very different. Were you expecting a 1-0 win when you saw the team news drop at God knows what time it was?
No, I don't think I was expecting a 1-0 win. I was expecting a win, to be honest, because obviously Brentford aren't in the best of form at home at this moment in time. And I think realistically, we're on the back end of a really tough run of fixtures in terms of turnaround time, and granted the actual difficulty of the fixture as well. But I don't know, there's always that sense of optimism that we've got to turn it around and find some sort of formal patch of form at some point or another. And there's no time like the present to do that. And I think that some of the scepticism over Olsen in goal, which I'm sure we'll come on to, I don't think is there when he starts anyway. I'm a lot less concerned when Olsen's starting a game to when he's coming on mid-match into a scenario.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, I don't know in front of me of how many games he started, but generally we concede quite a few goals when Robin Olsen plays. You're right though. I'm more worried about Emi Martinez coming off at half time and also being thrust into a situation that definitely feels different. I always say I don't like to judge the team news when it drops. It seems a stupid thing to say, but you could say, "Oh, Bailey's in again," and then he scores like he did against Bruges on Wednesday. So I kind of let the game play out first before I maybe question the team afterwards. If you think, I don't think that was the right side. Obviously, Olsen wasn't a choice. Sammy Martinez wasn't available through. I'm guessing some kind of injury or illness potentially. I think the commentary on Sky said they were left in Birmingham as a precaution. What that means, who knows? But it's very easy for Olsen specifically, and he's probably the only one that makes me feel a little bit different pre-match when I see the team sheet. That I do think, this is going to be difficult, just because of his reputation of, well, we can see goals when he plays. If that's going to play out again today, we're going to have to score a few to get anything. I think that's fair to have that assumption. But he did well, and I don't think many people would have had an Aston Villa clean sheet on their bingo card anyway. With Olsen in goal, I don't think anyone's expecting a clean sheet today. You might have expected us to win, but not with a clean sheet.
No, and I think you have to look at it and go and look at the consistency point of view in terms of that back line as well. It's hard, like we've had the most consistent back line this season, and that's just another spanner in the works to throw into the mix of it. The one game where we seem to have a settled back four somewhat,
Yeah.
and Olsen's the curveball that comes into that. So it's all credit to him, and it's all credit to the way that they've defended. So I thought we were really good defensively overall, and it's no small part to him and the way he's gone about it. I mean, he was looking a bit ropey about 30 minutes when he looked like he stretched his back or whatever it was, and well, here we go. This is the scenario we don't want to be panning out. I mean, at that point, there you're thinking Gabriel Carai's on the phone, aren't you? In terms of you're getting in your emergency keeper at that point. But no, we survived, and just hopefully it's nothing serious for him. I saw a few comments actually suggesting it was conjunctivitis. If that's the case, hopefully he's
fit off Bardell.
Yeah, but that's what I've just seen in the comments section anyway. But not convinced.
I've seen a lot of stuff on social media tonight about an Emi Martinez illness, a Mings and Asensio bust up in training, to use a journalism headline. Not even going to speculate. No idea. That's not anything that we've heard. It's an injury or whatever, or an illness, and that's that. And I don't think you'll hear anything different. Let's kind of get a bit like when a newspaper has to offer some kind of an apology. Let's do one of those. Tombo Jones says, "Is Mings finished, Dan?" Now, I said after whatever game it was that I was worried about Mings, and rightly so. I felt at the time, he's had his big injury, he's come back and looked shaky. He got thrown into the game when Kamara had to come off. I think was that Ipswich potentially at Villa Park, and I felt that he just didn't look comfortable. He didn't look right, and I was kind of expecting, is this the the end of Tyrone Mings, whether that be his career, which maybe was a step too far, or just his time at Villa with his contract running out next summer, I think it is. We're kind of going to see Mings start to phase out a little bit. I still would have question marks about his game time and how much we can put onto him. Like, will he now be able to play on Wednesday? Now he's played 2 games in a week. I don't know. But again, very good. Was very good on Wednesday. And I don't know if I want to say I want to offer an apology, because you feel how you feel after certain games, but I was certainly wrong to write off Tyrone Mings so early. I think there's certainly still something to offer if we can manage his load. And I did say that at the time. I just didn't think we'd have the luxury of managing him because we're relying on him to play. Now we've got options in there at centre half. We don't have to flog him to death, basically. So I think if you can manage him, there's absolutely still something for Tyrone Mings to offer, of course.
No, I agree. And I remember your comments. It was in one of your Q&As with John, wasn't it, early on after he'd just come back? And he did look shaky. And throughout the time, I said I do worry for him because he's come back from a lot, and that's a huge sort of thing to do in the first place, let alone to play consistent Premier League football as he has done in the last few weeks. And the workload that he's going through at the moment, I mean, only he knows his body and what he's capable of, but you can see him wince every time he does get a slight knock. You can see the concern that's in there. So, but yeah, it's another solid performance from him. It's been a huge week for him, I think. And from a confidence point of view and a consistency point of view, it's huge for him that he's got that steady back line to come into now. He's not chopping and changing as such who he's next to at this moment in time. And touch wood, that can be the case for the coming weeks. And no, I can't fault him again today. Excellent at the back. And he's a real leader in that side. But I think the question marks come as how does he perform when we play another big team and how he stacks up at that point. So that's, I think, where we hold out for the time being. But no, credit to him and the way he's going about his business.
Yeah, whilst he's still effectively coming back from his injury problems, if he now had to play on Wednesday, and I know we got the break after it, so it's probably a rubbish example, but and then he had to play again at the weekend, and then the following midweek, I would be concerned about 5 games in the space of 2 weeks. So I still have that kind of that doubt, but he doesn't have to play on Wednesday. Pau Torres is back in the squad and has been in a couple of squads now and not featured, so you think maybe he would possibly play on Wednesday. Konsa is obviously there, Disasi is there, Bogard as well. So we don't have to play Tyrone Mings if he is kind of 60% there or something, whereas a few weeks ago he had to play, and that's where I think my worry came from predominantly. Enough of that anyway. Just a really nice... I love winning away, you know. Obviously, I'm not there, you're not there. There's only so many people that go to away games all the time, and I'm not one of them. I love going to Villa Park and seeing us win and play well because you're there and you experience it. But I love winning away as well, even not being there. These kind of games, Everton earlier in the season, again, a 1-0, nothing too spectacular, but you've gone to a place that could be difficult, and you've done a job. You've basically done the bare minimum by winning 1-0. You've got the 3 points by doing the bare minimum you had to do. But we're up for the fight. We're up for the scrap at times as well, and that gives me encouragement for the mentality of the squad and the willingness to kind of give everything, I guess. So just winning away is always nice, isn't it?
It was pleasant, and I think for the most part our game plan worked well. It was quite clear that Brentford were going to try and sit off as well, but as soon as Brentford tried to press and come on to us, we played our way out of trouble pretty well and had a few pretty good chances on the counter, especially. I mean, and obviously the one chance obviously chalked off for offside and on the turnover, but the Ollie chance late on, you know, we were creating chances, and that's what you realistically want from an away performance, is that sturdiness at the back and the ability to counter attack. You know, it's high time that there's a performance where we've gone in, we've not had to play against a low block necessarily. I mean, I'm fed up talking about the fact that we're playing against a lot of low blocks these days because of the way that Emery's set up previously and how we've torn teams apart. So there's been new challenges this season, especially away from home on that front. So I think that we're starting to combat them slightly, but there's still a fair few games to play, isn't it, at this point? But it's just pleasant to get points on the board away from home. Especially after a Champions League game, that's the big hoodoo amongst it, isn't it? I mean, I think the other game that we won was when we beat Wolves at home towards the start of the season. That's the only time we've won.
That was the first Champions League game after Young Boys, which again was a bit of a buy, wasn't it, through to the 3 points?
Yeah, so from that perspective, it's a huge sort of confidence boost, because else everybody would be talking about the fact that it's another Champions League game where Villa haven't won, and that's suddenly the story that becomes of
Yeah.
how we suffer when we've played in Europe. And it was weird at half time. There's a few comments about how Villa look leggy. I think Lee Hendry said, "Oh, we look a bit tired," and this also suggested the fact that we didn't seem to be playing that well. But I was quite confused about both those points because I didn't necessarily
I
think we
thought
looked
we were
tired
fine.
at all in the first half, and I wouldn't necessarily say we looked bad in the first half either. I thought we actually put in a good showing in the first half. So both those comments were bizarre, especially when at the best of times we've not been very good away from home this
Yeah.
season. So to walk away with a clean sheet and 3 points is huge. And suddenly we're a point off Chelsea with a lot of football still to be played.
Yeah, I think it was by Villa standards, that was a good first half. It was nothing spectacular, but we created chances, limited Brentford to basically very little, and kind of traded blows a little bit. And you're still in the game at half time. And again, you take that away from home, knowing that if you get a chance, we've got good players that could score goals. And that's exactly what we saw at the start of the second half. So, yeah, a solid away performance, a nice professional job done, clean sheet, 1 goal, take 3 points and move on. We'll talk about league position and the kind of bigger picture in a sec. We obviously do this quite a lot. Some people don't like it, some people do, but you're a different person. So you could talk about it instead. I tweeted before the game and when we did the preview, there was 3 things I wanted to see out of today's game. Just getting a result away from home, even a point, I'd have been relatively happy with. I think again in the bigger picture, a point away at Brentford is good, but because our recent results haven't been that good, like Ipswich, Wolves, West Ham, it did put more pressure on us today that we kind of had to win almost. No European hangover. I've been sick of that narrative as well. I wanted to come out of a European game and get a result again. And the third thing was defending the first shot on target. And I'm delighted to say we managed to do all 3. We didn't concede from the first shot on target for the first time in, I think, 15 games. Madness.
I think if you looked at those 15 games, I'd be intrigued to know of those 15 how many different backlines we've had amongst it.
Yeah.
I'd hazard a good bet that 13 of them
all
were
15
probably
probably.
different back fours every time. And I keep harking back to that consistency, but I know obviously Olsen was in goal today, but the consistency of having that settled back four makes a world of difference. And knowing that it's not the case that we haven't got options on the bench if the worst does come the worst is an even better point of view to have. The fact that Kamara came off the bench today is a testament to how we're not having to rush these players back in at this moment in time. It feels like we're finding the right players at the right time now in terms of their fitness and coming back into it. So for me, that's a huge positive, and it comes back to that idea of the fact that we've not considered our first shot on target. So I mean, I think Digne did a number on Mbuemo. I think he struggled.
I
I
thought
think
Dean played well,
Visa obviously got through early on with that effort, but otherwise, again, pretty nullified as well. And then suddenly the main threats are gone, and Kevin Schade didn't do a fat lot either. So for me, we did a number on all of their sort of attacking prongs, if you like, and we just settled into a nice pattern at that point. And once you've not conceded the first shot on target, the momentum that builds from there is a huge plus point.
That's got to be a confidence thing as well. The players must obviously be aware of that. There's no way Unai is letting them get away with. You're pretty sloppy off the first attempt on goal. So when that first one is saved, or saved, I guess it's okay. Finally, right. First time we've done that for quite a while. Let's kind of push on now. There was a couple that went wide from Brentford, where it was a little bit like, kind of got away with one a little bit there. But by and large, I didn't feel that threatened by Brentford, and I felt like we had most of the control of the game. Before we get to a couple of the specifics like the goals and the VAR and a certain goalkeeper, there's a comment from Imrana. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Can someone explain to me what's happening with Danielle Maren? Not eligible for Champions League, but starts on the bench in the league. Then Cash comes on before him. There's a lot of questions about Maren. There's a lot of speculation. Leon says, I have a feeling that Marlon and Emery have clashed. He seems to be being punished. Again, not going to speculate. No point. We don't know. There's nothing that has been fed our way that with any suggestion of wrongdoing or whatever. There was some questions, rightly so. I can't remember the game. It was before Cardiff, I think, and he didn't come off the bench. And then it was revealed that he was unwell, and then he wasn't in the Cardiff squad. I think I've got the timeline correct there. Whether he's still recovering from an injury or an illness, I don't know. Obviously, there's the whole conversation around the Champions League squad. So it feels like we'll kind of reward him by playing in the league games then, because you're certainly not going to be playing on Wednesday, mate. So, maybe you play against Brentford. But again, comes on for 2 minutes at the end. what do you make of the Marlon conundrum? Is it an ability thing? Do you think there's a clash behind the scenes, Matt Lynch? What's your assessment of the situation?
I think there's a few factors here. I think factor one is I think we've done our business early for the summer. Is point one that I
Potentially, yeah.
take away from that. I don't necessarily feel that Marlon is a player that's for now. I think he's a player that comes into his own in the summer, in particular, with a proper pre-season under his belt. And I think that there's very much a question mark for me about Bailey's long-term future after this
Agree,
season.
yeah.
And I look at that and I go, that's where you think possibly. And equally as well, there's no divine right for Marlon to walk in and play himself straight into that team. I think that Asensio is a different case in that model, but for Marlon, he has to play his way into that team with the performance, and he's looked good in moments, especially. I mean, I think the game against Wolves, he was a bright spark. Obviously, got his goal, but overall, I think that from that perspective,
Was that
we've
ruled out, that goal?
yes, I think it was
Yeah.
actually. I'm just thinking, yeah, it was, but yeah, I don't read too much into it at this moment in time. There's the long play with Marlon, I think, at this moment in time, and
Again,
equally as well.
different to the January business in the sense that the other recruits were loans there for the here and now. Marlon is
Yeah,
a permanent signing. Like the fact that he's not impacted the side by March, doesn't really matter. He's here for the
no.
next 3 or 4 years potentially.
No, exactly. And I look at it in the other cases and go that Garcia is an extreme example in the sense that the only reason why he's got the early game time is because of the injuries that we've
Yeah,
had. We've been forced into that position. I don't think that was necessarily the plan for that to be the case. We needed the backup naturally, but it wasn't going to be the case that he's been playing so many games straight off the bat. That's for sure. I mean, he's come from the second division in La Liga. But on the Marlon point for me, yeah, I'm not reading too much into that one. I think there's a longer one at play with him in particular, but his versatility is going to be needed at times before the end of the season.
100%.
And for me, the way footballers, and I think I heard you talking about it recently, might have been with Matt actually when he was on the other week, but how this isn't about 11 players anymore. This is about your 5 players that can come off the bench as finishers, if you want to call them that. And I hate the idea that they're called finishers now, but that's where we're at in the sense that it's not just about your 11 men now, it's about your 5 that are off the bench that can come on after 45 minutes and 60 minutes. I mean, on another day, Emery brings one of the front line off and puts Marlon on at half time. That's just them are the roles at times at this moment in time. For me, yeah, nothing to read into there. Another day he comes on at half time. And I think that the tactical play today was bringing Cash on at half time made total sense at that moment in time. I think that Bailey was ineffective at
Cash did
best.
well on Wednesday as well.
And Cash did well, yeah. And for me, we
Tuesday.
needed a bit more of that solidity on that side at that moment in time because Sharda was getting the run on us a bit more towards the end of the first half, and it made total sense because we all know about the liabilities that come with Leon at the times in his defensive work rate.
There's so much speculation about Marlon. I just can't get on board with it. And he says injury and illness is always an excuse. I can understand why, but there's no smoke without fire. Something has happened in training this week. Until we hear otherwise from the club directly that it's something he's not training well, or there was
I'm
an
not being
argument with the
funny. If
captain
it
or
was that
whatever.
much of a problem, he wouldn't have been on the bench today.
Exactly.
So
But that's the Asensio argument. Apparently, he's fighting John McGinn. Twitter is saying, and that's why he wasn't in the squad. It's just pure speculation. And until we hear otherwise, there's no reason to buy for that. He was ill a couple of weeks ago. Maybe he's still ill. That's not an excuse. That could be a genuine reason. Maybe Emery doesn't quite trust him yet because he hasn't learned Emery's ways. Maybe. I don't know. He will get his time. We still have 10, 13, 15 games, however many we get in various competitions to play. Obviously, Marlon won't play in the Champions League ones. He will play and he may score crucial goals and might be really important. Maybe he comes on for Watkins with 20 minutes to go and scores the winner in a game. Like, I'm not writing him off because he's not been affected by the 8th of March. It's just one of those things. Not every signing is a instant hit. It doesn't always work like that. Even Rashford, to an extent, over the last couple of games, hasn't done a fat lot, and we're paying him a lot of money to do it now. So it's football, isn't it? Sometimes these things go for you, sometimes they don't. But I'm not getting bought into any speculation about fights at the training ground or being annoyed with the gaffer and all that kind of stuff. Just
ridiculous.
no evidence. There's no evidence for it. No point. Let's talk about the goals then. I say the goals. It should have been the goals, but it was just the goal in the end. Coming out very bright after half time. Watkins gets his muted celebrations compared to last year after being booed, which I thought that was quite odd. Did you?
It's honestly bizarre. I don't understand it. Watkins could have done more for that club, to be honest.
Is he their Premier League top scorer still?
I mean, considering we signed him in the when he was in the Championship, we might struggle on that one.
Not Premier League top scorer. I think he might be one of Brentford's top scorers, though.
But no, I think that the thing there with Ollie is that last season, obviously, it got a bit bitter, didn't it? He scored that goal and he had a bit of two ways with one of the fans just behind the goal last season. And it's bizarre considering what he's done for that club. But in the end of the day, they were counting down Robin Olsen on goal kicks. So anything else is, it's fair game, isn't it, at that point?
Yeah, no, that was strange. I mean, do everything you can to put off the opposition, maybe, but I don't think I've ever had. I think it got to 16 in the end, which was Olsen holding the ball for 16 seconds. I don't think so. Yeah, Watkins is actually nowhere near their top scorers. Tony's got 72. Watkins has 49. I feel like he had more than that. I suppose he wasn't there for that long. But anyway, did a lot for Brentford, and there was some, bits and pieces last year. He celebrated because he was being abused by a fan during the game. Was the story, and they didn't like that because for whatever reason, and then boo him, which I thought was strange. Anyway, gets his goal, doesn't celebrate, and obviously it's deflected, but it's a decent finish from Ollie in that area to take it on. We've seen him not take it on at times, and yeah, he's got lucky with the deflection, but a good move. I think Tielemans played through Ramsey. Good running by him. They'd potentially at that stage of the game have been my shouts to man of the match, which we'll get to in a second. But it's a well worked move, and we come out the second half score, and it's okay. But different game now.
Yeah, I thought we deserved that hugely, and
Yeah,
for all of Ollie's frailties at times, that's Ollie at his best in that moment in time, flashing it across goal. I mean, he didn't quite flash it across goal because of the deflection, but that was the aim in that moment in time. And in the end of the day, that's another goal in his record book, and it must put him only 2 behind Gabby at this
yeah.
point
I think
now.
he's on 72 now.
He's right behind him at this point now, and I think for all the stick that he gets, he obviously played a huge part in what could have been the second goal as well, which we'll come on to. But yeah, a lovely free flow move. But at the end of the day, Brentford gave us a bit more space in the second half. I think Brentford came out a bit different in the second half on that front, and we made them pay early on, and we were unfortunate to have the second as well. But in that moment in time, I think that I don't think Flecken's a great goalkeeper, to be honest. Anyway, I know he's had a few worldies in recent months, but for me, I don't think he's a Premier League goalkeeper. So, but at the end of the day, it's a nice finish.
Yeah, he's done well. Obviously, he's got fortunate. I think the anti-Watkins fan club will say he's got lucky and he didn't deserve it or whatever. But he scored a winning goal for Aston Villa and notches up to 72 now for not a natural finisher. That's pretty good going considering he's played 150 odd games. It's a pretty good ratio. Obviously, it could be better, and the chance at the end is proof of that. Let's do that actually now while we're on it. I was never really confident that Watkins was going to score for that position. We spoke about it loads about when he's like instinctive or a chance falls to him and he gets a shot away quickly. You kind of think, yeah, that's Ollie Watkins. That's what he's good at. Generally, if he's got time to think and run with the ball and have to make a decision, I do question his decision making. I think whoever the commentator was said, I could see he was going to try and I could see that he was going to try and dink him from there. So the keeper obviously knew, and it felt like he's run from inside his own half. He's got the length of the pitch to think about it. I think he overthinks. I think he tries too hard in some instances to try and be too clever or whatever it is. And the finish wasn't good enough, and it's a good job we didn't go on to rue that with a late Brentford equalising, because we'd all be saying, Watkins has got to do better in those positions to kill off the game, basically. If that had let's say that was a long ball up and the defender is the favourite to win it, but doesn't, and it falls to Watkins' lap on the edge of the area, I back him to score in that position because it's just different.
It's certainly bizarre, isn't it? I don't want to dig him out because then he was the match winner for us. But in that moment in time, that was a very unlike Ollie Watkins sort of attempt on goal. Anyway, I know we've talked about the instinctiveness of him, but the instinctiveness there for Ollie normally is to flash it across goal, and the goal quite straightforwardly it is. But he's overthought it too much at that moment in time. He's had too much time to think about what he's going to do at that moment in time, and we're unfortunately it was costly, and it wasn't costly, but it's just unfortunate for his sake more than anyone else that he didn't put that away. But on another day, though, Flecken doesn't stand as big and tall, and Ollie finishes it. But
yeah, he gambles on what Watkins is good at.
See by Alan's comment in the commentary box about how he could see it from up there, the fact that he was going to try and dink him, but. Hey, I'm not going to give him too much slack. I think he gets enough stick as it is on social media for stuff, but he doesn't deserve half of that. I mean, the record speaks for himself. The the way that he's links up the rest of play for Villa is essential to the way Unai Emery plays, and he's so much more than a striker and a goal scorer for us.
Yeah, if Flecken gambles on the fact that Watkins drills these low and hard to the far post and goes down early, the dink works, and we're not talking about it being the wrong decision. Again, it's football. It's two people there involved in the decision of what's about to happen. And sadly for Ollie, it's not come off for him, but for Villa, we've won the game 1-0, and that's that. Doesn't matter. Again, he's involved in what should have stood as the second goal, in my opinion. Rodgers scoring against Brentford again should have been offside by a leg hair, is it? It's so tight again, isn't it?
They didn't even zoom in that close, did they, at the time? I couldn't.
What's the point
At
anyway?
first glance, Alan Smith thought he was well onside, and to be fair, I thought he was as well. But on that angle, it is the finest of margins, isn't it? Something. Yeah, fair enough. Fair cop. It's offside. Okay, fine. It's more the timescale and the fact, the uncertainty of everyone in that stadium and the people at home. In truth, don't really have the foggiest what's going on because they take so long.
It's just
Marginal
not
at best.
the process is
fair
just
enough,
not right.
No.
Me and Neil spoke about it a couple of weeks ago about the frame rate of the cameras and where the point of contact of the ball is, and the way that things can look different in motion. That sometimes you'll see a screenshot of the ball in motion and it's not a circular shape anymore. It's like looks like a rugby ball, and we know that's not what a ball looks like. So how if that's how cameras can see things, how do you know the specific point? And if you're going to be so I don't know, whatever the word is, like precise with the offside and pedantic, you've surely got to have the technology that allows you to make those decisions. So I feel the rule and the law has got to change with what the current technology offers, because there's too many of these calls that 10 years ago you go, he's level there, benefit to the attacker.
Yeah.
2-0.
It's always in the rule book. It is the benefit to the attacker. That's the benefit as a referee you give. It's
I don't
why
think it is
advantage
anymore.
exists for any sense of the purposes because of that. And I look at it and go, if it's a body part that he can't score with, then how could it be offside?
Yeah,
is my approach with that one. And it's fair, I couldn't even tell which part was offside anyway because it was that marginal and close that they didn't zoom in enough to be able to tell that. But if it's his leg that's clearly offside, then fair enough. But if it's his arm, then or hand, then he can't score from either of those body parts. So why does it matter? It's the laws are so
it's a good goal as well.
brainy. It's a great goal, and it's just bizarre that should stand in my book. But
Yeah, same.
look, on another day, the way VAR is as bizarre as it is, that goal stands. So it happens, but it's frustrating because I think that halted some momentum. I think, to be fair, if we'd have got the second at that point, to be honest, we'd have probably gone and got a third and fourth because Brentford were wobbling at the best. But that sort of VAR decision has given that boost and impetus, and it was nearly costly.
Yeah. George says, lads, why are we on Watkins' case? He scored the winner. We're not. We're massively pro Watkins. I don't think we are.
I'd like to think he's on about the comment section.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I feel like we've not come across as anti-Watkins in this. We question his decision-making for the chip, but he scored the winner and is, again, if that goal stands, creates that goal. And that's what we've seen of Ollie Watkins. I don't know how many assists he would have been on, but I think he's had another assist ruled out this season as well. Somebody else scored off one of his setups and it was ruled out. So he's a productive player, Watkins, and we're big fans of him. So if it's come across that we aren't, sorry, because we are. Yeah. We're massively pro Watkins, almost too far the other way. Sometimes we're told that we don't criticise him at all. Let's do the man of the match, shall we?
It's everybody's favourite section. It's time for the Man of the Match award, and we're going to pick our top 3 in order. And if there wasn't 3 good players, it's a bit of tough, isn't it?
Just to explain this a little bit for you, Matt, I know you're a listener anyway, but for maybe those that are new to the podcast, we used to just give a man of the match to X player, but we talked about 5 or 6. So we got a comment from a viewer who said, change the format and pick a top 3 in order. 3 points to first place, down to 1 point for third place. Keep a track of them. And then at the end of the season, you'll have a definitive, after games, who you thought was the best player of the season. So I'm going to offer a player who I think would go into first place, so 3 points, Disasi. He would be the man of the match for me.
No, there's no doubt. No, he was excellent, and you can see how much he's enjoying playing for the club.
I really like that.
That means so much to me watching that he cares that much. I mean, I wouldn't expect him not to. He's a professional, but the way he goes about his business is first class, and you could say he gets himself into some of the trouble that ends up in the situation where he's clearing that trouble up. But as long as he's clearing that trouble up, then I'm not too concerned. But some huge moments in that game where he was decisive, and there was that odd penalty call, which was never a pen, by the way, that he was involved in
Yeah,
that
agreed.
incident. But otherwise, he was superb. And the crown and glory is the fact that we've had a clean sheet with him in that back line. And you do wonder what Chelsea fans were sort of
Yeah.
up in arms with in terms of his mentality and performances, because I think he's actually been very good for us so far. I think when he's been out there on the right, sometimes he's struggled a little bit, but he's looked at home the last couple since.
Totally agree. I thought he was brilliant. He got second place in the man of the match for the Liverpool game a couple of weeks ago as well. And as like you said, has been solid when he's been able to play. Obviously, he hasn't played in the FA Cup, won't play against Preston either. Still cup tied, stupid rule. Anyway, he's been very good. So he goes in for me at number one pretty unanimously amongst the comments as well. There's been a lot of names actually suggested, which is always a sign of a decent game. I think you could probably pick maybe 6 players here as options to be into the top 3, but I think most would agree having Disasi at 1. Do you want to offer up a number 2?
I'm going to say Robin Olsen.
Are you?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Controversial.
He gets a lot of unfair stick, a lot of undue stick for me. I think people forget and are quick to forget he's a Swedish international. And I know we talked about the show about how he's a different keeper when he comes off the bench to when he's starting the game, and I stand by that. And at the end of the day, he's instilled confidence, and there's a few moments where he has to take control of situations, and you can't ask for much more than that, to be honest, when he comes in from a number 2. And from a confidence point of view, it's huge. I mean, at the end of the day, if you come away with a clean sheet, given our recent record at home and away from home, then he has to be in the top 3 for me.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I'd be tempted to put him at 3 potentially. I'll just say then, almost by default, I agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with he's got some undue stick. We concede a lot of goals when he plays, and by and large, most people expect us to not win when he's on the team sheet or when he comes on at half time or whatever. So I think the stick is mostly warranted. We don't play well. The defence doesn't look confident in him, but it probably is a little bit over the top at times. We've definitely lost today. Olsen's playing. Well, that wasn't true today, was it? So yeah, sometimes it is undue. But you're right. He's a Swedish international. Everything that you hear about him around the training ground, which I know feels a bit of a cliche sometimes, but he's a good trainer. He's a good number 2. He knows he's not going to be the number 1 when Emery Martinez is here. He's good with the lads and all that kind of stuff, and nobody kind of speaks a bad word about him inside football, and that does go a long way. As a fan, you watch him sometimes think, I've got no confidence in you, mate, and neither of the defence, and that's a problem for us. But today, you're right, he has kept a clean sheet. And the scenes that you saw at the end with the players kind of pushing him towards the away end and letting him kind of get his flowers is kind of proof, or I suppose proof of the idea that we know that he gets stick, and we know that he's not the best goalkeeper in the world, and he's not as loved as Emery Martinez for obvious reasons. But he's just played well. We've kept a clean sheet. Give him his praise, like he does deserve it. So you are right. I think he probably should be in the top 3. I'd be happy to concede and maybe put him in at 3rd, although it's a toss-up between 2 and 3, I guess. He's not the man of the match. Although the away end were singing the world's number 2 at the end. So maybe he should go in at number 2.
Maybe.
The world's number 2. Yeah. Go on, let's put him at 2, actually. It's gone against expectation, is my reason why. Nobody would have had a clean sheet with Robin Olsen goal at the start. So let's give Robin Olsen number 2 in the man of the match behind Disasi at 1. Do you want to have a suggestion for 3rd place? I think this is where we get into the stage where it could be one of maybe 4 players for 3rd place.
I know, obviously, coming on, I said about Watkins, but I think Digne did a number again today. I mean, Digne one of our best players all season, but Mbeumo was very quiet. Didn't see a fat lot from Mbeumo, and he's been in good form of late. So I think that for me, Digne is probably my shout at this point. I haven't considered that a little bit more, but Yuri is top class, and the engine that he's got on him to perform the way he has done. And I think at times he was covering some of the mess John Begin was creating, to be honest, as well as his own job. So Yuri could be in there every week, and you could put him in the top 3 quite easily, no questions, every week. But yeah, probably today, just because in terms of jobs to do, Mbeumo is probably one of the toughest in terms of the season to put up against, and he's done very well.
Yeah, again, fair and sound reasonings. I was going to open it up to the comments for the 3rd place, but again, we've kept a clean sheet, so to have 2 defenders and the goalkeeper, it makes sense. Our attacking players haven't really done a lot because we've won 1-0. We've created a few chances, but nobody's played like a blinder. I thought Tielemans was especially good in the first half. He would have, if we'd have done this at half time, he was the man of the match of the first half. And I thought Ramsey played reasonably well as well. Some good ball carrying from him and good kind of impetus to take us forward. So I think you could have probably Dean, Mings, Tielemans, Ramsey, and probably Watkins as a shout for a man of the match contender if you're picking a top three. But as you're the guest and we've kept a clean sheet, we'll give it to Dean on this one. But I think Tielemans gets into these top threes pretty regularly. Yeah. I think he's probably Villa's player of the season at the moment. Has he played every single Premier League game, every single minute? Well, potentially not every single minute, but started every game.
He's one of two, yeah, I believe. There's not many, to be honest, given
I reckon the other one might have been Martinez, So I reckon he's the only one now who started every Premier League game.
Yeah.
AVFC Statter will know if he's watching. I reckon Martinez.
Morgan Rogers missed one through suspension. So maybe.
Watkins has definitely not started a couple of games. McKeon hasn't. Kamara obviously hasn't.
Question.
None of the defenders would have. I reckon the other one would have been Martinez if it was two.
Yeah. Rogers definitely missed one through suspension.
But he's on 8 bookings, so he definitely had a suspension for 5 at some point.
Yeah.
He's the only player left now who can get a suspension for 10.
Yeah.
None of the other players are close enough. I think the amnesty is...
The Cup game was the one that he missed through suspension, which might make sense.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
We're just speculating here.
I thought Roger missed the league game as well. But
he has, isn't it? But yeah,
he has played a hell of a lot of football. Roger
Tielemans can't be disputed, but yeah, they put him in there every week as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Let's talk about the league table a little bit and the bigger picture. We spoke in the preview about Villa's away form, and we were 16th in the league table at that point with 14 points. A win goes a long way when there's only half the amount of games, but we're now to 11th in the away form, 17 points away from home. Obviously, we're still third in the league table. Oh, no, we're not. We're fourth. Oh, God. We were third yesterday, but Forest obviously winning at home today has propelled them above us. Level on points, 28 points from home. So we're the 4th best team at home and the 11th best team away, which, to be honest, I don't even think I'd have us down as the 11th best team away from home with some of the performances we've had this season, but the results have just about scraped us in there. In the actual Premier League table, that puts us up to, is it 7th now? 7th, 45 points. Goal difference still -4. Doesn't look great. Champions League will be 5th place. Like, it's not announced yet. It's not been confirmed, but there's obviously Liverpool and Villa, I think, will be the quarterfinal of the Champions League. So there'll be an English side getting to the semi-final. I think Chelsea should go all the way in the Conference League. You got Spurs and United still in the Europa League. And there are other nations that we're competing with that will probably go out at some stage. So like the 2 German sides are playing each other, so one of them won't be in a latter stage and all those kind of things. I think it will be almost 99%. You could say it will be 5th. So that's Chelsea at the moment on 46 points. We're a point off 5th. And I know we do it all the time. We always look at the league table because we play in a league. Of course, we're going to look at it. People say things like, yeah, we're 10th, but we're 4 points off the top 5. Like, forget where we are. We're 10th. But the points has always been close. We're 7th now, which would be I think a Conference League spot. But I know we've played a game more, or we've actually played 2 more than Chelsea, because obviously they've still yet to play this weekend. But again, the bigger picture is we're not a million miles away. We have to be better, and we've said this all the way through. We have to be better away from home, and we've gone a little bit of the way to doing that today. We've got to pick up all the points at home, probably, and we play teams around us like Forest, etc. You've got to be winning your home games, and you've probably got to win maybe 2 or 3 of the 6 away games, maybe. So it's still a tough ask. We still have to do our job, but we're not out of it. If we were 10 points off 5th, I'd be saying there's absolutely no chance. And yes, the game's in under there. I get it, but points wise, to be here at the start of March, a point off the top 5, and it's still very congested. It does give you that little kind of tinge of what if? Is it still on, do you think, Champions League qualification?
I'm going to call you out here, but you and John had a conversation on a podcast a few weeks ago that I listened to when I was driving, and you were like, "Oh, Champions League's off."
Is this me getting called out twice in the same episode on my own podcast?
I'm a firm believer in the fact that we're still in this hunt at this point now. There's still a lot of football to be played. I appreciate Chelsea have got Leicester tomorrow. That's 3 points, fair enough. I think we've got a game in hand at the moment on Brighton. We've still got to play Brighton again. We've got to play Newcastle, got to play Forest, we've got to play Man City, and got Man United. These are all winnable games realistically if we're on form, and especially
you
at
have to
home
win
for
them.
that Newcastle game. We have to win them.
Yeah.
And the Newcastle game at home and Forest at home, both those games, you go, okay, I'd fancy us to do them over. I think Forest is the trickier of those two. I think Newcastle, realistically, if they lose that cup final next week, they could go one of two ways in terms of the way they go and spiral.
Yeah.
But then you look at the other games around that. Man United away, last game of the season. Really don't want it to be coming down to that, but I think it quite possibly could do. I think we'd probably potentially be the team that relegates Southampton. Anyway, as we know, they're done and dusted, but that's only a couple of games away at this point. And then, yeah, we've got a couple of tricky ones mixed in there. But realistically, it's a huge few weeks to go. But just getting ourselves into the international break would be the ideal scenario, wouldn't it, without any injuries? You know, we've got one of the games to play until then, and then we can breathe a sigh of relief for a couple of weeks and hope that some of the lads come back refreshed. I'd like to think we don't have to necessarily see Pau this side of the international break for the sake of fitness. And I say it's on, is what I say. I think teams will start to drop away at this point now. I know it's still so congested, but there's a little bit of daylight starting to open up now. I mean, but you look at the other results today, and perhaps they've not all gone our way in terms of what's happened, but overall, you'd say they have. I mean, Crystal Palace on the Christmas 11th. I don't think we've got to be concerned about anything lower down there. I think that we've just got to look up at this point now. Realistically, you look at it and go, Fulham, I mean, their form is so patchy at best. I wouldn't necessarily think they're in the pitch necessarily. I think Brighton are a problem at the moment. Brighton are grinding out results.
That would have been a good draw today, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And then Chelsea, obviously, again, I know they've had a good run at the moment in the sense that they've played terribly recently, but the fact that they've played Southampton and then Leicester back to back is sort of the dream scenario for them in terms of trying to find some form again. So for me, I think we're banging the picture still at this moment in time, and I don't think we can be ruled out at this point. I really don't. I think there's still so much football to be played, and look, I think Europa League, if we're being realistic, is probably where we're going to end up. But there's still that one eye that says Champions League's still on. There's nothing ruling that out. I think that the top four, I think Forest win today has probably pulled them away a little bit more. So you probably look at it and do go, to be honest, the top four is a bit of a stretch, but I think fifth is still well on.
Well, Man City are fourth at the moment on 47. Obviously, Forest beat them, which in some ways I do think is the better result. I don't think Forest will drop off. I think it's. I know Man City are what Man City are, but I think Man City are easier to catch than Forest this season. I really do. I think Forest winning kind of puts them up almost potentially in the top three, and that's that for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Forest finished third, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I think Brighton were a point behind, Chelsea a point behind, City 2 points behind. But again, we've played more than all of these sides. And like you said, Chelsea tomorrow, they're going to win, aren't they? Of course, they've got Leicester. So they'll be on 49 and they'll go above City into fourth. Behind us, Newcastle 44, Bournemouth 43, Fulham 42. But crucially, of course, we still have to play them all. And the thing that, you're right to call me out, of course. I was adamant that we weren't going to finish in the Champions League.
I'd agreed with you. I'd agree. I was listening going, I sort of agree, but since then it's
not brave enough to say it publicly, Matt Lynch, whereas I just kind of put my neck on the line.
I'm not on any social media these days, so I can't do that. So
I was almost that stage. I can't remember when it was specifically. I think it might have been after Ipswich or after Wolves, and I thought even just getting into Europe might be a struggle. Never mind the Champions League, even the Conference League might be beyond us. The way we're playing at the moment, and that was before. If it's when I think it was before playing Liverpool and Chelsea, where if we'd have lost both of those games, I don't think anyone would have been surprised. I know we're at home and we're good at home, but that's two sides that we quite easily could lose to on any given day. So to come out with that with 4 points, brilliant. You lose at Palace, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Brentford away is a result that makes you sit up a little bit and think that's a difficult place. You've won 1-0, but it's about trying to build something. So we're still in the conversation, but with the games that Villa have coming up, as you've read some of them out, you've still got Forest, Newcastle, Tottenham and Man United towards the end of the season. Brighton are around us. Fulham, I suppose, are around us. Bournemouth are. Every game has got like this 6-pointer quality to it. You have to win. And if Villa do, and they win 6 out of 9, yeah, we're well on for a top 5 finish potentially. At the time that we were saying, oh, Europe's off the cards, we weren't playing well, and I couldn't see a turnaround of form. To have the Liverpool, Chelsea, Brighton results bundled together with Palace dropped in there as well does give me more confidence that, okay, well, maybe we can put a run together. So if we come out of the international break with a more fully fit squad, and let's say you beat Brighton away and then follow that up by beating beating Forest at home, and then you have Southampton to come as well. If you're then talking about 7 points or 9 points in those first 3 games after the break, you're still in the FA Cup, you're still in the Champions League. All of a sudden, you start to think, okay, maybe Villa can genuinely do this, and it's still a big task and a big ask. And I'm now not going to flip the other way and say top 5 is definitely on. Of course it is. 'Cause I'm going to look silly. It's still going to be very, very difficult. But there's been signs over the last couple of games to make you go, okay, maybe there is something in this side after all.
Yeah, then
I'm allowed to change my opinion as well.
No, you are, and I'm not one to necessarily write it off either. I'm forever the optimist, but I think, to be fair, quite rightly, you point at Man City aren't a million miles away, actually, in hindsight of that picture for us in terms of what that looks like. But you got to look at what the other teams are fighting for as well. And I'd actually look at it now and go, this is the sort of position we were in, the season Emery first came in, and we did it. We pulled through in the end, and
with a good run at the end of the season,
we've had to
and we need
grind
to do
the
that
draft to get the Champions League and the Europa Conference League spots respectively. So in terms of the teams around us, we're the only ones that's done it in recent time. Newcastle, to be fair, did, but didn't really follow it up last year. So in terms of momentum on that front, we've got that. And I think to still be in the FA Cup at this moment in time is a massive opportunity as well, just from the sense of that continuing that momentum, because winning football matches is all that counts at this moment in time. And I just hope that we do that against Brugge and then put us in this standpoint where we're confident and going into the Forest game going, okay, win this and we're still right in the picture. But look, tomorrow Leicester could turn up and do a number on Chelsea. You just don't know. I mean, I watched the Leicester against Spurs game a couple of weeks ago and Leicester turned them over. But since then, Leicester have been terrible. So it wouldn't surprise me if they turn up tomorrow and do a number on Chelsea, the way Chelsea have been overall. I mean, Southampton are a basket case, but you look at it and go out the other side of that and go, if Chelsea don't come out well tomorrow, I think that there'll be a few worried heads around there at that moment in time. And you see the other teams around us and go, Brighton are on a great run at the moment, 4 wins in a row, isn't it? But prior to that, some horrendous results. So, yeah, there's still so much football to be played. We can't rule anything out at this moment in time.
Yeah, I totally agree. One final thing to end from Michael, who says, are you worried about Preston? Genuine question. Now, we've obviously done our bit on the Preston game. We celebrated watching the draw live because it's the best draw Villa could get, only bettered by playing them at Villa Park instead. Got a little bit of stick for that from certain quarters that don't celebrate too early. You won't win anything. Are you worried about Preston, Matt?
Not particularly. It's a long way away at this point. We've still got a whole month to go, basically, until we play them. So I've not considered that. I've got a lot of time to sleep before then, and got Brugge to worry about before then. Am I worried though? Realistically,
no.
I actually think it's the worst and best game possible we could have got in terms of a draw. And flashbacks go back to Bradford City all that many moons ago at this point. But I think in this position now, this is Emery at his best, and this is the stuff that he lives for at this moment in time. And Preston, by any means, aren't brilliant. They're not in the best of places.
This was like the top. If this was Leeds away, you'd feel differently about it because they're a good Championship side who are probably going to get promoted. Preston are where they are for a reason. Yeah, they'll have done well. They've got some decent players for the level. They could obviously cause us some problems. But if there's any Villa fans suggesting that they wouldn't back Villa as the favourites in that game just because we're away and we're scared of away games, we've just won the last 2 against Bruges and Brentford. So I wasn't worried about Preston a week ago. I certainly aren't now. And I won't be in 4 weeks' time either.
No, and the other thing you have to remember is that Preston, to get to this point now, have beaten Charlton, Wickham, and then Burnley. It's hard like they've got here by beating tough opposition week in, week out. I say week in, week out in the cup competition.
Month in, month out.
They've gone to Spurs away and beaten Spurs away, then gone to Arsenal and beat them. I know, ironically, they got thrashed by Arsenal in the League Cup earlier in the season. But from that sense of the word, obviously they've not fluked it to get to this point now, but by no means it's hardly like they've had a tough run to get to this point either.
Yeah, games can happen. You can beat anybody, and if football was as simple as the favourite always wins, then it'd be very boring. But come on, there's no Villa fans that are seriously suggesting Preston are going to beat us in a couple of weeks' time.
just saw George, by the way, say, why am I calling it Brugge? Because that's the correct pronunciation of it.
Are you a correct pronunciation man?
It's Club Brugge. It is. That's the proper.
Is that how they say it in Belgium?
Correct.
Brugge?
Yeah, it's Brugge. And so that's how 5 Live referred to it as well when I was listening to the game
Did
the
they?
other night. So, yeah.
TNT called it Bruges, and I've been calling it Bruges as well. I think most people are.
Nothing, is it? It doesn't really matter either. But I've referred to calling it Brugge, I think, because I was driving for the Brugge game. So, yeah, no, from that perspective, but no, all good.
Okay, right. Let's wrap up there. That was 50 minutes. Wow. Thanks everyone for tuning in on Saturday evening. Over almost 600 people here. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Matt Lynch, for coming on. We'll try and get you on more. People are you're always very popular when you come on the post match. So you're always welcome back. We'll be back on what day is it? Saturday. So we'll be back on Monday, I think, with a Q&A. So if you're watching this on catch up on YouTube, you can scroll down and leave your questions in the comments, and I'll try and put those into the running order if I can. We'll do a Bruges preview on Tuesday, and then obviously the post-match will be Wednesday night late as well. That should be me and Kendrick for that one. Matt, thank you. Thanks everyone for watching along or listening to this episode of the Clan Blue Podcast, and we'll see you Monday.